We are back in pink, and that's because starting tomorrow on Friday the 6th of July is the Giro Rosa, the biggest, toughest, longest and most prestigious stage race on the women's calendar. And this is our big GCN preview.
It is. Yeah, this is a race which started all the way back in 1988. And with the exception of 91 and 92, it's been run every year since, which makes this the 29th edition. It therefore boasts a rather long and illustrious list of previous winners. And basically, you can't lay claim to being cycling royalty unless you won this race at least once.
Too right, yeah.
I jest, of course, because Emma has twice finished runner-up at the Giro Rosa behind the cannibal herself, Mariana Voss. In that time, she also won 4 stages and won the King of the Mountains twice. But you've got to keep her feet on the ground, even though she's a climber.
Yeah, too right. This was actually one of the biggest regrets of my career, but never mind. This year's event sees the best pros in the world taking part, and it finishes on the toughest climb, arguably, in the world, the mighty Monte Zoncolan. And do you know what the best thing is? We have highlights package every day over on our Facebook page. Check
We
it out.
have, yeah, really exciting stuff. All right, let's take a look at the route over the 10 days. This year's route takes place entirely within the confines of northern Italy. The 10 stages add up to a total of 970 kilometres. The whole race kicks off with a short and very fast team time trial in Verbania, which is right next to the beautiful Lago Maggiore.
The hills begin the next day, although perhaps not quite in earnest just yet, with a 120-kilometre rolling stage starting and finishing in Ovada. Although it may still end up in a bunch sprint despite the undulations, because the latter part is predominantly flat.
And if it doesn't, the sprinters can rest assured that stages 3 and 4 almost certainly will. For example, it doesn't get much flatter than the circuit that we deal with on stage 3 into Corbetta. And then stage 4, though it does include slightly more elevation gain, we wouldn't think it would be enough to trouble the fast women as they head into Piacenza.
Indeed, and then things get a little more spicy on stage 5
Yes.
with the aptly named Monte Rosa, the Pink Mountain, which is 3.8 kilometres at 8.8%. However, that is just a little foretaste of what's to come the following day, which sees the first of the real mountaintop finishes.
That's right, this one being the Giro Alta, which peaks at 1,050 metres above sea level, which we think is enough to see some fairly significant time gaps, although perhaps not quite as big as we were expecting for the following day, because stage 7 is a 15-kilometre individual time trial up a mountain. I bet you wish you were still racing, Emma.
No, definitely not, but back in the day I might have looked forward to it. This one does look fantastic. It's called the Campo Moro. 15 kilometres average a little under 7%, but it is not steady as there are plenty of ramps over 10%.
It does look stunning, doesn't it? We've been looking at it on Google Maps and Street View, etc. It's really narrow most of the way up, plenty of tree-lined areas, but some areas where you get a beautiful view. Towards the top there are then a series of tunnels, and at the top they reach a dam. It's a must-watch, that one. The following day, they do get a little bit of respite from the high mountains and the big climbs, but they're going to need that because it precedes the big one.
Oh yeah, that's right. Stage 9 sees the mighty Monte Zoncolan. Now you might well remember this climb from the men's Giro this year, where Chris Froome won his first Giro stage. Well, the women tackle the same climb, 10.1 kilometres at an average of 11.9%.
It was actually the Giro Rosa that was the first pro race to use the mighty Monte Zoncolan all the way back in 1997. This year it makes a welcome return, or at least it does for us as viewers. And you've got to imagine that it's going to be the defining point of this year's race.
Yeah, I reckon probably. However, the final day is also no parade. Riding to Cividale de Friuli, if I got that right, the riders will have to tackle the first category San Leonardo climb, which is 6 kilometres at 7.1% before descending to the finish of both the stage and the stage race.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? As ever, you have to say. So let's take a look at the riders that we are expecting to shine.
Well, let's start with someone who certainly won't shine this year, which is last year's winner, Anna van der Breggen, because she's not actually starting the race at all. No, she's taking a bit of a break from the road to compete in a mountain bike cross-country World Cup. That does at least leave the door open for some other riders, though.
It does. Yeah, it's an interesting decision there, and I'm actually quite interested to see how she gets on at mountain biking. Time will tell. That does mean, though, that there are only 2 former winners of this race on the start line this year, and the first of those that we are going to discuss is Emma's arch nemesis, Mariana Voss. Now, she's been in the top 10 overall in almost every race this year and every stage of those races, but she's not managed to take a win just yet. So you've got to ask the question, is the Mariana Voss dominance era over?
Well, I personally would never rule Voss out. She did suffer a broken collarbone earlier this season, so she had to take some downtime. We'll see, I guess. But it might be the year for her compatriot over at Mitchelton Scott, Annemiek van Vleuten. The Americans and Dutch have dominated this race since 2010, and she might well continue that trend. She's had a very consistent season this year. She was 3rd overall last year, and she has the backup of teammate Amanda Spratt, who was 5th overall last year.
Yeah, dynamic duo there. Maybe this is the year for Van Vleuten, but then maybe it needs to be. Time's kind of running out for her. She's getting on a bit, Emma, isn't she? She's your age, 35 years old now, so maybe it's now or never. Last year's runner-up, though, Elisa Longo Borghini will be leading the Wiggle High Five squad. If she did win the race this year, it'd be the first home win at the Giro Rosa for 10 years. That was when Fabiana Luperini took her 5th title at the race.
Indeed, and now Gagne and Schramm might go for a two-pronged attack with Kaja Nivedoma and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who are both extremely strong climbers.
American hopes will be resting on the shoulders of the only other former winner here at the race, that being Megan Gagne of Bulls-Dulmans. Now, she did win the Tour de Yorkshire overall. That was a couple of months ago now, but that said, she also finished runner-up very recently at the Women's National Championships over in the USA, so she's clearly still on good form.
Yep, there's also Ashley Moolman-Pasio, who's been trying to win the Giro for years. Her best placing so far is 4th, but maybe this will finally be her day.
Yeah, or 10 days it will need to be, won't it?
It will,
That's
yeah.
a pathetic joke, but we'll leave that in.
No, but it's very important to be consistent in a stage race, that's true.
Yeah, there are a lot of GC riders, aren't there, at this race? I don't think we've even mentioned them all, but we do need to move on now to the sprinters because there's an abundance of them too. We could start with the duo over at Ale Cipollini because they've got both Marta Bastianelli and also Chloe Hosking. There's also Arlena Sierra of Team Astana. Alexis Ryan will be representing Gagne and SRAM in the sprints. We then have Mitchelton Scott's Jolien Dora.
Yeah,
Kirsten Wild will probably be the rider to beat, riding for Wiggle High Five. Mariana Voss, she's been up there at the sprints recently at the women's tour, so she'll be up there on the sprint stages. And then we're not sure yet about Corinne Rivera. If she is there, she'll be up there in the sprints, but Team Sunweb are, as we speak, releasing their lineup one by one.
And always worth watching out for Giorgia Bronzini of Silence.
Very true, yes.
Yeah, former world champion, of course. But with that lineup and the stunning route, this is definitely a must-watch Giro. So this is a good time to remind you that you can do just that by heading over to our Facebook page after each and every stage, where we will have highlights, and I'll actually be on the ground for a couple of stages getting some content, so stay tuned to see those videos. Yeah,
very excited about that. First time we've had highlights of this race over on our Facebook page, so as Emma said, make sure you head across there. Right then, seeing as how this is your first big race preview, I should probably inform you now, Emma, that this is the point at which we make our predictions. Little bit of advice before we get going on this. If you'd like to stay for a long time at GCN, make them bad ones.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't generally predict winners.
Right, no, okay, that won't be a problem because I'm notoriously poor at predicting anything,
okay,
frankly. Yeah. I don't want to curse anyone either, but I would go for Annemiek van Vleuten because, I mean, she's such a strong climber. Last year you saw it at La Course and very consistent, very strong team around her. Yeah, I think she's the one to watch out for.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, time's running out for her. Right,
nice. So rude.
I'm going for Megan Gagne.
Yeah?
Yeah, she's one of 2 former winners, as we mentioned, on the start line. Her whole team should be behind her for this race. The fact there's a 15-kilometre time trial uphill, I think, is playing into her hands. That win at the Tour de Yorkshire, clearly climbing very well, recently on form too. Yeah. She's got what it takes, clearly, and I think it's going to be her year again.
Well, let's hope we haven't cursed either of those riders in the usual GCN way.
Yeah.
But if you like this video, then feel free to give us a big thumbs up. And like I said, watch out for our content over on Facebook. In the meantime, if you want to see a little bit more of our previous chat about women's cycling, you could check out this Ask with Mariana Voss, quite recent, back at the Tour of Britain, the Women's Tour of Britain.
Yeah, really interesting stuff there. Make sure you check it out.